Empowering farmers with intelligence. EFL AG-DATA presents to you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the EFL AG-DATA Podcast, where we bring you the latest trends and updates in the feed and livestock industry. And today we are shifting our focus on Indonesia's egg industry, which is a sector grappling for oversupply, declining prices, and a need for innovation. And of course, today with us is our resident market expert, Matthew Clark, to help us analyze this complex scenario and shed some light on how farmers and policymakers are navigating the hurdles. Welcome, Matthew, to the podcast.
Great. Thanks, Alvin. It's great to be here. The Indonesian industry is a fascinating one. It's a case study of resilience and adaptation. And there's lessons in this study for other markets facing similar situations.
All right, Matthew, let's set the stage. Let's get right into it. Okay, well, according to the data, as of early October, egg prices in Indonesia range from $1.41 to 1.54 per kilogram, which is below the government's reference price of $1.70 per kilogram. Can you tell us what's causing this decline and how are the farmers coping in this situation?
Okay, we have to look at the supply-demand balance here. Farmers are continuing to produce roughly the same amount of eggs, but there is a declining demand in the market. So what we're seeing is a weaker purchasing power in the population there, and reduced consumption patterns, and that is pushing the price down lower. So the reaction is that the farmers are having to make some very tough decisions to manage the costs. You know, they're culling some of their stock early. They're cutting back on their parent stock hens. This is one way to reduce the oversupply and bring the market back into balance, which they're having to do. But it can be financially draining, and of course it cuts into the long-term supply capacity in case of a purchasing power recovery. So it does have to be managed very carefully.
Well, it's interesting to know that actually in Indonesia, the laying hen sector is considered more mature than compared to the broiler industry. How does this maturity then influence how the market responds to challenges?
Okay, well, the maturity really refers to how the various participants on the farming sector, the actors, manage their own situation without any heavy government interference. This is the mature side where the industry takes care of itself. So when they're faced with an oversupply situation, breeding farms to begin with will take proactive measures to reduce the number of parents. That cuts back the number of layers, and it reduces emergency culling in the long term. So this self-regulation, it's important. It does help to maintain some stability in the market, but it does, on the downside, mean that farmers have to bear the full financial burden of these imbalances, and it makes it imperative that they put in innovative strategies to help still control the economics of production and the pricing there.
Yeah. Well, speaking of innovation, the government of Indonesia has stepped in to provide subsidized corn for feed, which is considered a significant cost for the farmers. How has this impacted the industry?
Well, it's obviously good news. Feed costs account for about 70 to 80% of production cost, and of that 70 or 80%, 40% is down to the volume of corn going into the feeds. So this initiative has benefited layer farmers struggling with this falling egg price, but it will take away the short-term pressures on cost of production, but it doesn't get to the longer-term problem that the market is depressed because of the excess supply compared to the weakening demand. So that's where we need to have longer-term solutions, and this exciting area of diversifying egg products is coming into play.
Yeah, talking about that, that brings us to a fascinating development, which the focus on egg powder processing. Indonesia actually imports a significant amount of egg powder from countries like India. But why hasn't local production met this demand, and what's being done about it?
Well, yeah, that's a big question. Despite steady growth in the chicken and the egg production in Indonesia, they still rely heavily on the imports of egg powder. The existence of this gap is telling us that processing infrastructure is lagging behind the growth of the industry and the growth in the production. Egg powder is crucial in industrial baking, for example, and other kinds of food manufacturing. So the demand is there, the demand is substantial, but the infrastructure has not kept pace with the demand in that particular sector. So we're importing into Indonesia. And this is a problem for the industry. It's an opportunity. So in 2022, the Directorate General of Animal Health and Husbandry, they launched a pilot product to develop a local egg powder facility. So in the Blitar region, there's a factory producing 10 tons of egg powder per month. Not high, but it's a start. And they have plans to scale this up to 30 to 40 tons per month. Now, this is going to reduce the import dependency. It's going to take some of the eggs off the local market. It's going to help to stabilize the pricing to a certain extent, and it will give farmers a more consistent outlet for their products. This industrial egg sector has a much more steady demand at the end of the road compared to the retail market for fresh eggs.
Yeah. I want to know, how does egg powder processing help address the problem of fluctuating egg prices?
It's about how do we create value and how do we get around these fluctuations. Fluctuations in Indonesia are very sharp from week to week. This is one of the problems. Now, eggs are highly perishable. So it's difficult to clear a surplus of eggs in Indonesia. Now, if you go to egg powder, it's a different thing. You're not so vulnerable to the perishability of the product. We can store egg powder, and it is a tool that we can use to overcome these swings in the supply and stabilize the demand somewhat. It opens up new markets. It replaces the imports of powdered eggs in Indonesia. So it contributes in several different ways. But the most important thing is acts as a kind of capacitance for the industry to take away these short-term bounces in the market. They go into egg powder and into storage, let out later. So this transformation into using egg powder, it does give farmers less exposure to price volatility. That's the important thing. It works for producers and it works on the rest of the agricultural economy. So it's a win-win situation.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like a promising direction to go to. But are there any challenges to scaling up egg powder production?
Yes, there's always challenges when you start doing something new in the food sector. Foods require a very big investment in technology, labor, and people, and that's what's going on. So we're buying in new facilities, new technology, educating a new workforce. And we also need to educate the farmers and organize them into how they use this resource that in the new value chain that we're creating here. So another challenge, of course, with industrial food production is to maintain the standards. Especially if these pilot plants are going to compete with established producers who are exporting to Indonesia. There has to be a lot of attention to the quality and the consistency of the product, and also the cost of production too. We should not forget that.
Yeah. Great to know. Well, before we close, what lessons then could you share of what other countries or other industries even what we could learn of Indonesia's egg sector?
Well, I think the big thing is adaptability. The Indonesian egg sector is adapting to various challenges of volatility and also replacing imports. There are some other initiatives going on. Subsidizing the feed as a short-term measure. This is good in the market. Self-regulating production as a responsible industry is also there. The value add chain through the egg products is important. So what we see in Indonesia right now is quite good responses to changing situations. And this is a big lesson for other industries that tend to work on a we produce fresh eggs kind of basis. Indonesia is moving around, facing the challenges. So it's a balance between survival and growth. There's a kind of Darwinism going on here, and any agricultural sector in any country can benefit from this lesson, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that. And well, it's clear that the Indonesian egg industry is clearly navigating some tough challenges. However, the innovative solutions that they implement offer hope for a sustainable future, right?
Indeed, they do. Yes, yes. Well, thanks, Alvin. It's been great to go through all these with you, and
Thank you, Matthew, for the
interesting
great
area.
analysis.
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you.
Yeah. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in into another episode of the EFL Ag-Data Podcast. We'd love to see you in our next episode. And if you like this discussion, please do subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us in our LinkedIn and Facebook pages. Stay tuned, stay informed. Until next time.